Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Well, hey, I'm Ashley Brundage, and I live in Tampa, Florida, in the United States of America. And I'm excited to be joining you today. A little bit about me. I overcame harassment, discrimination, and a year and a half of homelessness. I found employment as a part-time bank cashier. And then in 4.5 years, I worked across all the different elements in the financial services industry, from being a banker to being a business banker, an investment banker. And that led me then to becoming the national vice president for human resources at that company, working for 60,000 employees and providing leadership development programs for those employees. I did that, and I had a great time while doing it. I'm a mom of 2 teenagers, and I overcame a lot of stuff in that journey. And then I left the banking industry to run my own company. I published a best-selling, award-winning book called Empowering Differences, and shares a little bit about my leadership model, which I'm excited for us to chat about. And then I've just been involved as a staunch community advocate for years in helping marginalized identity groups have resources and highlight them through programming and education. So I do a lot of that. I've hosted events and conferences on cruise ships and in 9 countries around the world. So I'm no stranger to kind of moving about the world, but it's excited to connect with you and your followers, and vice versa. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Ashley. It's absolutely wonderful to have you on the show. Now, you've turned personal adversity into a platform for empowerment. How did you shift from surviving to thriving?
I think that it really stems from taking note of who you are in the world and kind of the things that make you different, and then using those as an advantage. And when you're building relationships, when you're selling products and services and goods to other people, you're able to expand your sphere. And so I call it kind of step 1, which is getting to know yourself. And we have to really take a holistic effort to really decide whether or not one is empowered or disempowered for anything that makes up who you are as a human. And then what you do with that information is really so important. And I think you have to be able to look into your inner self and to figure out that answer to that question of being empowered or disempowered. But you need to identify it based on each one of the things that make you who you are. Because some things could have advantages inherently, and then some things could have disadvantages. And I talk to a lot of people around the world who may struggle financially at times. And so social economic class is a big item in my research to help people better understand how to overcome that is different than how to overcome gender empowerment or how to overcome not having enough education or not having enough resources. So it really, really stems from kind of starting with yourself, and then you can work through our steps to kind of build that rest of that plan to help you on your journey.
So, what inspired you to write your book, Empowering Differences, Leveraging Your Differences to Impact Change?
Going in the fast career arc that I had was definitely part of that journey for me. And I was being asked a lot. People said, "Oh, well, Ashley, how was it that you were able to do that in 4 years to go from being a part-time employee at the lowest level in the entire company to then being an executive so rapidly?" And it wasn't because I had a great educational background, because I dropped out of high school. It wasn't because I had a lot of gender empowerment, because I'm a proud out woman of transgender lived experience. It was really because I was leveraging all of my differences. And so I had to help people understand how to do that, because so many people were asking for me, like, how I was able to do that. And I was like, well, I follow the 4 steps of empowerment: know yourself, know others, develop a strategy, and then take empowering actions. And those 4 steps really grew from the book and the resources that I published, and then we turned it into a manual, a workbook. We turned it into an online leadership development course to help people. We turned it into a deck of cards to help people have conversations, conversation cards through it. And then we turned it into a digital survey platform as well. And we really wanted to do that because so many people who were asking me to write the book were really just kind of wanting to understand how their mix of their differences were impacting their level of empowerment. Which ones were disadvantaged, or which ones were disempowered, and which ones had inherent advantages or already contained empowerment. And why couldn't we figure out that on an individual basis? Because leadership development happens so openly in organizations, right? You can join a program pretty easily, but it's not scripted by who you are as an individual person. It's scripted for all of the people who work in the company,
Yes.
not tailored specifically to you. And the tailoring it to you is really the quintessential piece that I was trying to create through this process.
I love that. And it's not just a book, it's coming with so many tools, especially the one that can help people have those difficult conversations.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
love that.
interesting. So, can you walk us through the 12 empowering actions that you teach through your framework? Which one resonates most for you personally?
Yeah, so the 10 empowering actions kind of all have something that's very crystal clear in someone's leadership journey. As I mentioned earlier, right? Social economic class empowerment is statistically the item that requires the most empowerment across the globe, because I've actually surveyed more than 10,000 people through our platform now. And this is the one that statistically rates lower, even amongst people who are employed. Obviously, people
Yes.
who may be between jobs, those scores are a lot lower. But even while being employed, those scores are typically lower. And for social economic class empowerment, our top action is invest. And so we teach people about how to make strategic investments, not just financial investments, but investments into their personal life, into their professional development, investments into their family, investments into their mind, body, and soul. All of those things are part of teaching people about strategic investments, because how can they ever get an advance into this world especially for fiscal empowerment, if you don't understand how best to leverage the resources and the money that you have. So resource allocation is also a big part of that module. And so that's just one action. But obviously, for each of the differences, right, I go down a different path depending upon how my makeup is as a human. And one of the things
Yeah.
that really resonated for me was, and one of the actions that I actually got really the most education out of was enlighten. And enlighten is the action that helps people understand and navigate difficult conversations. So when you disagree politically, or you disagree socially, or you disagree over anything, over religion, if you disagree over any of these topics that seem to have a lot of disagreement in our current world,
Yes.
then this action is definitely the best one for you, because it teaches you how to validate other people's existence. And a validation module is your path forward to building a connected piece or connectivity towards other people. You're not always going to agree, right? You're not always going to agree to disagree, but we do have opportunities to build connections with people, even with those that we disagree with.
I like that. That's a very beautiful way to look at life. Now, what do you believe is the biggest misconception that people have about diversity, equity, and inclusion work, especially now with the political climate in the United States?
No, that DEI is taking away someone's job. This is the top one I hear so often. It's interesting. I once kind of had a fake crystal ball, and I was using my crystal ball back in 2016, and I said, "Wow, I have to tell you, I feel like that there's going to be a day of reckoning for DEI." And I was actually just quoted in an article today that we were speaking about the fact that the DEI was kind of shadow attacked from 2016 to 2020. And
Right.
shadow attack is where, like, oh, well, you're like, is it good? Is it bad? You're trying to figure out whether it's good or bad. Well,
Yes.
anytime you have an opportunity to sell more things, more goods, more services, and more things to more people who are different, because you've learned the ability to relate to people
To
who are
those
different,
people. Yeah.
this is 100% better scenario for you. And so, if anyone out there is thinking that DEI is bad for business, this is a big, someone lied to you, okay? And someone made it out about somebody else who was not qualified, or somebody else who was taking your job. And
Yeah.
instead, that means that you should have been more tactful in learning about trying to sell to people who are different, because at the end result, diversity is differences. And that means there are 8.5 trillion, whatever, millions and millions of people, right? 8.5 billion people on the planet, right? And those people are all different. No
Yeah.
two people are alike. So
Not the same. No.
every single person is diverse by definition. That
Yeah.
they're not alike. And so, if you're afraid of that, then you really, someone definitely gave you misinformation,
It's
and
true.
it's really important to get to know the root cause of what is really good practice: diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever people want to call it today, because I feel like it's going to have to evolve. And that's kind of why I've always centered on helping people understand differences and empowerment, because those two
Yeah.
things haven't been canceled.
They come hand in hand.
Yes.
Wow. Now, you often talk about amplifying differences rather than blending in. Why is embracing authenticity so crucial for leadership today?
I think it's an opportunity to be seen.
Hmm.
Visibility is really important. It's one of the reasons why, like, when I'm walking around in an event, I'm usually wearing high heels, even though I'm really already tall. People say, "Well, you don't really need those," and I'm like, "Yes, I do, because I can be even taller." So I mean, there's an opportunity to be seen, and I think being seen gives other people the ability to know that they can exist in that space, but
Yes.
also so that way they know that you're not afraid. And I think that there's a lot of fear in the anti-DEI movement. It's
Yeah.
someone who's fearful of losing their job. They want to collect a state paycheck. They don't want to move outside of their comfort zone. And when we
Yeah.
move outside our comfort zone, we tend to learn new things.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
meet new people. We have opportunities that maybe to have a conversation that we would never have in our sphere. So I think that that's the thing that people are really afraid of sometimes, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's exactly the thing that can lead to all the success that anyone would ever want to have.
That is so true. Now, how did your experiences navigating leadership as a transgender woman shape the insights you now see and share globally?
Mm. I had a conversation actually about a month ago with a big legal organization in the United States, and we were talking about. They asked me about transgender rights, and I said,
Yes.
I mean, I started transitioning like 16 years ago, and so I guess that makes me like an OG or original gangster. But one of the things that I noticed is that wow, it's a lot. I feel like it's actually harder to be your authentic self in this current climate. And they said, really? And I was like, yes. Because 16 years ago, I would just live my life, and then people would snuckle or laugh or whatever they wanted to do, and they would just move on to the next thing
Yeah.
very quickly. But now it's like people are very like actually like hunting for us. Like I've gotten like death threats and stuff. It's like really strange, and it's a very different world, a complete different world than what it was in the past. So I think to anyone who is trying to figure out where they live on this scope of transgender rights, because this is
Yes.
and everyone has an opinion about this. This is a
Yeah.
really strange thing that everyone has an opinion about this issue, which I think like is it really affecting you? It's such a small percentage of the population. Probably is not really affecting you. But at the end of the day, people have a lot of opinions about other things that have no bearing on their lives. And
Yeah.
it's an opportunity that you have if you've ever felt like you were marginalized, you've ever felt like maybe you didn't have a voice, or that the room didn't look like you, be it
Yes.
from being a person of color, or from being a woman, or from having maybe a disability, or maybe you don't speak the language that is being used primarily in the space that you're in.
Yeah.
You know what that's like. You know how you can be singled out very easily. You know
Yeah.
that all of those efforts are all in tune together, tied through what we like to call allyship.
Yes.
And allyship is a constant opportunity where someone can stand up for someone who might be in the room by themselves.
Yeah.
Because being in the room by yourself is a very scary proposition. It can put you in a scenario where you might not then want to be authentic, and you might not want to be vocal. You might not want to share your opinions. But I can tell you, in the workplace, my lived experiences were always an inherent benefit that the organization got, because when they asked my opinion about something, I could
Yes.
give them my lived experience across the gender continuum. And it's almost like I can speak in 3 points of view, having
Yeah.
witnessed workplaces in all the different aspects of rising in the corporate sector, to running a nonprofit, to organizing in the community. I've seen what that's like on both ends of the gender coin. So I can
Yes.
tell you how men are treated in the workspace and how women are treated. I can give you lots of valuable feedback as
Mm-hmm.
one person, but in multiple perspectives. So this is an
Yeah.
inherent edge that people don't even think that exists. And
Yeah, exactly.
this is actually also why lots of other cultures across the world have actually deeply respected people who have gender variances or gender differences. And it's just kind of a current state in some parts of the world where they want to ostracize this community. But I think that this too shall pass.
Yeah, it's just a phase, and hopefully you'll come out on the other side better. So, what advice would you give to organizations that want to move beyond performative diversity efforts and create real inclusion?
I think it depends on what kind of metrics you're tracking,
Mm-hmm.
because the numbers are the easy thing to always be able to find money in the budget for.
Yes.
Oftentimes, having been through the political cycle shifting over the last 12 years, going back and forth, I mean, I'll tell you that budget wise, how much money an organization showcases towards this effort all stems on as to how much money it's actually showcasing that these programs are showcasing to help the organization. So
Right.
one of the things that I did when I ran a program for 60,000 employees was we were tracking how much revenue we were creating towards the bottom line from our community activism. Um,
Okay.
and and we were able to showcase millions of dollars in the U.S. in revenue every single year. So no one would ever go and say, "Oh, well, we don't want to invest in this program," because we
Right.
were immediately doing it and we were showcasing an ROI. So I think you have to really stick towards having tracked metrics and numbers that speak to the
Yes.
success of a program, and then be able to know other HR or human resources related figures that can help you in your fight for why this is important, like
Yes.
your turnover percentage and how much does it cost to replace someone, and all of these things from not having an inclusive environment. If people
Yeah.
leave, what is the cost to the organization? You have to be able to paint these costs in a much clearer vision for people, so that way they understand the importance of this work.
Yeah, I think when they see that bottom line, it becomes very, very obvious why it's important. Now, you have built a global following of over 100,000 people. What has been the keys to growing such an engaged community?
Mhm. I think that consistency is important. I do a newsletter for my followers. I
Okay.
usually give them something on social media once a week. And then I offer a lot of free programs, programs where people can sign up and individuals can benefit from being a part of my network.
Right.
I love that because it gives me the opportunity to give back, especially if someone doesn't have the budget for a leadership development program. Next month, I'm teaching a course about communication called Own Your Story. And it's being brought through a nonprofit organization in America. And
Mhm.
and so I'm donating my time, and it's a 3-part program, and people can participate for free. This is a perfect example of like ways that you can engage to grow your audience, right? So
Yeah.
ultimately, while we're not charging anything, but we're um, gaining people who are very passionate about wanting to own their story, and they can all be future advocates and champions for the work that has to be done. I think that also you have to give back in your community as well and
Yeah.
volunteer for nonprofit organizations. I think that was probably one of the biggest ways that I got a lot of exposure. I started winning awards. Like I got a key to the city where I live. I won an award from the most unlikeliest person ever to give me an award. For those that may not follow American politics in Florida, the governor of Florida named me the Woman of the Year.
Oh, wow. Are you serious? That's just
Yes,
awesome.
which was certainly a shock. Uh,
I can imagine. Wow.
yeah, so I mean, I think that you find unlikely allies or people who will amplify your message by
Yeah.
the work that you do and having other people who will also showcase that work is
Yeah.
incredibly important.
So, in your experience, what is the biggest barrier to self-empowerment and how can people overcome it?
I think it really just starts with the mirror. And I love the analogy of kind of using the mirror as your starting point, because
Mm.
anything that relates to being disempowered usually starts with you. And like I said, I have surveyed people around the world. I did an initial survey of my research, and we actually asked 1,000 people across the world around what might be limiting their ability to have more empowerment. And I
Yeah.
was expecting people to say, oh, well, it was racism or it was sexism. And we got those answers, but
Yeah.
63% of the people told us that it was them. And in
That's
some way or shape,
interesting.
they
Yeah.
said or they said, I haven't learned enough languages, or I haven't worked hard enough, or I haven't taken enough schooling, or I haven't earned enough money yet to have as much empowerment as I want. I haven't done this and I haven't done that. Like, it was, I need to lose weight. I need to, like, we heard every answer in the 63% of the responses, and those
Yes.
all were stemming around the word I, or me, or it's my fault, or, it was something along the lines of that. Now, of
It's
course, yes.
interesting that people are taking responsibility for their lives in acknowledging that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess maybe I did ask a lot of empowered people, maybe, this question, but,
Okay.
but
Okay.
nonetheless, still 63% is a huge
That's a high
number
percentage.
of
Yeah.
people who were suggesting, because the question was, what about you limits your ability to have more empowerment? And
Yes.
then and so I kind of went there to see if they were going to say it was something about their differences, but really
Yeah.
most of the people were saying it was their confidence
It
level.
was them.
and,
Oh, wow.
and and so this kind of stems at why this is so important around confidence and framing and positioning yourself to know that you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish, and that you're just scratching the surface in this scenario. So I think that we have to be very cognizant that, yes, there are outside distractors, and right, so that's the 37% of the responses all said all those
Yes.
other things. Right, we heard Islamophobia, right, anti-Semitism, like literally all of the other things that you can imagine people would say that were
Right.
limiting them. But most of the people were centering to say that it was them that was limiting themselves, for starters. Definitely the other stuff, but just to start for themselves.
I love it. Now, can you share a moment when you realized that your voice had the power to create real change?
Mm. Well, it definitely winning an award from the governor was one of those moments.
Yes.
I also did consult on a project, for the prior resident at the American White House, which was kind of cool. But I would say, really, for me, it was, I don't know, probably a mix between like my work accomplishments, but also having my kids stand by me in everything
Mhm.
that I've done. And last year, I was actually politically on the ballot, running to be a state representative in Florida,
Okay. All
which
right.
was a lot of fun. I did win an election, and then I went on and I well overperformed based on the current political climate. Uh,
Yes.
and so that was a lot of fun, but really it was the fact that my kids were right there, shoulder to
Yeah.
shoulder.
That is
They
so
were
beautiful.
they were knocking on the doors and handing out leaflets. Like, I mean, like, to get someone to want to get involved in that environment, which is
Yeah.
not easy, especially in a place like Florida,
Yeah.
was a big deal to me. It showcased everything that I needed to know, that the work done, for to raise my kids, was hard work, but it was well worth it, and it
It
was
was worthwhile.
yeah.
Yeah. So my last two questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment.
Gosh.
And the one, I'm going to teleport you into the past, to that young woman who was making a decision to transition, lost, confused, not sure this was the right thing to do, had so much against you. If you could go back and give that young woman three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
Let's see. I would probably say to definitely have patience. Patience, because things are gonna not be easy, and know that the not easy part is exactly what's meant to happen. You have to go through challenges in order to come out stronger and to learn from those challenges. So that would be a big part. The patience, I think, would help you on that pathway. And then I would definitely say some to showcase probably more effort towards learning about communication. This was something that I probably would have loved to have taken more educational classes younger, to really, really learn, and maybe invest in learning more about other languages as well in the communication sector. And then lastly, I would say probably just hold space for love, because the work that people do in trying to create advocacy and the work that people do to kind of drive empowerment for others is emotionally taxing in many ways. So holding space to know that that love and should be part of hopefully it'll be part of what you want. But I think that should be part of that as well.
That's so beautiful. Last question. I'm going to teleport you into the future to meet the 90-year-old you. And she is sitting in her rocking chair. Maybe she's on the dance floor with her kids and her grandchildren. Who knows? With science and technology, you'll probably live to 120. But if I could teleport you into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
Oh gosh. I would probably say it's good to see that you're still having a lot of fun. I don't know. I think that if it's not fun, then it just makes things so much harder, because there were so many things that are difficult that we have to go through. Everything is, the salary conversation is difficult. You have to tell somebody no, right? How many times a day do you have to tell somebody no, you can't do that? And those are always tough. So you have to find the ways to kind of make things more jovial, and because we tend to get so institutionalized in many ways. So I would want to really go and see how she's still having fun, make sure that she's still having fun, because that would be really important.
I love it. Ashley, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with us today. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Ashley, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.